All right, today we are diving into what is, no joke, one of the most intense chapters in the entire Bible, Matthew 23. This isn't some gentle story or a quiet parable. This is a full-on public takedown of the religious leaders of the day by Jesus himself. So let's just jump right in.
And boom, right there. That single line, that's the key that unlocks this entire chapter. It's all about this huge gap Jesus sees between what the religious leaders preach and what they actually do. Think of this as the central theme, the big idea that's going to shape everything else we talk about.
Okay, so first we've got to set the scene. To really feel the weight of what's happening, you have to picture it. This isn't some quiet chat in a back room. No, this is a loud, public showdown, probably right in the temple courtyard, with massive crowds hanging on every word. I mean, you could cut the tension with a knife. So, who are these scribes and Pharisees he's talking to? Well, think of them as the absolute top of the religious food chain. They were the Bible experts, the community leaders, the ones everyone looked up to. They held what was called Moses' seat, which means they had the authority to teach the law. So for Jesus to stand up and challenge them like this, it would have been jaw-dropping for everyone there. Absolutely shocking. And here's what makes this even more intense. The timing. This is it. This is the last public sermon Jesus gives before he's arrested and crucified. I mean, these are literally some of his final words to the public. So yeah, the stakes could not be higher. He is not holding anything back. Okay, so what's the core accusation here? What's the main charge Jesus is laying at their feet? Well, it all boils down to one powerful word: hypocrisy. But we're going to see his definition goes way deeper than just, not practicing what you preach.
It's really interesting. The original Greek word for hypocrite is hypokritos, and it literally means an actor, someone on a stage wearing a mask playing a role. And that is the heart of Jesus's accusation. He's saying their faith, their righteousness, it's just a performance. They look amazing on the outside, but what's going on inside their inner reality is a totally different story.
And he gets super specific. He calls them out for doing all their good deeds just to be seen by others. They'd make the little scripture boxes they wore on their foreheads bigger or make the tassels on their cloaks longer, all just to look extra holy. They loved getting the best seats at parties and being called teacher in the marketplace. It was all about the public image, the status. And worse, they'd pile these heavy religious rules on everyone else, burdens they weren't willing to lift a finger to help with.
All right, this brings us to the main event of the chapter. It's like the prosecution's case. Jesus lays out a series of 7 condemnations, what we now call the 7 woes. And this is where he presents his evidence, one devastating point after another. Now, that word woe, it's a really important one. It's not just Jesus shaking his fist and being angry. In the Bible, a woe it's more like a doctor giving a terrible diagnosis. It's a statement of deep sadness mixed with a warning of the awful consequences that are sure to come. It's a cry of both judgment and sorrow. So the first woe is an absolute bombshell. He says, "Woe to you, because you shut the kingdom of heaven in people's faces." Think about that. He's telling the religious leaders that they're acting like bouncers at the door to God's kingdom, not letting anyone in. And not only are they not going in themselves, they're actively stopping people who are genuinely trying to get in. Then he just goes after their priorities, which he says are completely backward. He points out how they're so careful to give God 1/10 of their kitchen spices, like down to the last mint leaf. But they completely ignore the things that actually matter to God: justice, mercy, faithfulness. And he gives this incredible picture. He says they strain out a gnat but swallow a camel. Can you see it? They're obsessing over this tiny little unclean bug in their drink while they've got a whole giant unclean camel sitting in their stomach. They completely missed the point. This next image he uses is one of my favorites. It's so powerful. He says, "Woe to you. You clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside they're full of greed and self-indulgence." See, the outside looks perfect, but the inside is a mess. And the solution he offers is so simple but so profound. He says, first clean the inside, and then the outside will become clean too. He's saying real, true change has to start from the inside out, not the other way around. And if you thought the cup analogy was intense, he doubles down with this one. He says they're like whitewashed tombs. Now back then, tombs were painted bright white so you wouldn't accidentally bump into one and become unclean. So on the outside, they looked clean, bright, beautiful. But Jesus says, on the inside, They're just full of death and decay. What a brutal, unforgettable image for a religion that's all about appearances.
Okay, as we get to the climax of the chapter, you can feel the tone start to shift a little. The fierce judgment is still there, for sure, but something else starts to come through, a deep, profound sadness. This is where we see the why behind all this fire.
And look, the verdict is absolutely severe. He calls them a brood of vipers, basically a family of poisonous snakes. He warns them of their coming judgment and holds them responsible for a long, tragic history of rejecting the prophets God had sent them. And then, right after all that harshness, we get this. This is maybe one of the most emotional, heart-wrenching lines in the whole Bible. Jesus looks out over the city of Jerusalem and just cries out, his heart breaking. He uses this beautiful, tender image of a mother hen wanting to gather her little chicks under her wings to protect them. And this is what you've got to understand. This whole chapter isn't just an angry rant. It's a lament. It's the cry of a God who is offering protection, offering relationship, but who also respects our choice to say no. That last part, "but you were not willing," is everything. It shows us that his anger comes from a place of love, a broken heart over his people refusing the very safety he's offering them.
So, okay, that's what happened 2,000 years ago. But why should we care about it today? Well, because a chapter like this isn't just history. It's meant to be a mirror. The words Jesus spoke force us to stop pointing fingers at the Pharisees and start looking at ourselves.
Jesus points out this really sharp irony. He says the Pharisees built these big, beautiful monuments to honor the prophets their own ancestors had killed. They'd say things like, "Oh, if we had been alive back then, we never would have done that." And yet at that very moment, they were plotting to kill Jesus. So the mirror turns to us, right? How often do we honor the saints and prophets of the past, but maybe we ignore the challenging message God has for us right here, right now?
So what are the big takeaways? They're actually super practical. First, practice what you preach. Simple as that. Try to align what you do with what you believe. Second, pursue humility. Jesus flips the whole script and says the greatest person is the one who serves others, not the one who seeks status. And third, focus on the inside. That inner transformation is way more important to God than just looking good on the outside.
And all of that really brings us to this one final, powerful question we have to ask ourselves. Is my faith more about my outward appearance, or is it about a real inner transformation? Am I more worried about keeping the outside of the cup shiny for everyone to see, or am I letting God do the deep, hard work of cleaning the inside? That's the challenge of Matthew 23, and it's a question that's definitely worth thinking about.